So this is the front page for a project called Miami Havana Times Are Changing, designed by a Parisian studio called UPIAN, which is run by a rather wonderful guy called Alexandre Brachet. And Brachet is the person who I heard talk about this and say, design is content. So this is a project about, it follows the lives and aspirations of 12 young subjects, 6 in Havana and 6 in Miami, all of Cuban heritage. They're divided by 90 miles of sea. The project seeks to portray the common hopes and fears of younger generations of Cubans and their Miami counterparts. The user can choose to navigate the 2-minute clips by timeline, by people, or topic. So you have 3 different ways into the database: time, people, or topic. The UPIAN design is brilliantly elegant, making for an easy and attractive user experience. The screen is divided into thumbnail shots that you can see, with the Miami material above and the Havana material below. The innovation of the timeline creates the sense that the viewer is comparing lives in a diary chronology across this divide, and we're able to navigate up and down and sideways in the media player, adapted by UPIAN for the project, in ways that create a very fluid experience. This project built on a previous work that some of you may know called Gaza Shterot, Life in Spite of Everything, which was made in 2008, which was a piece of work made across the wall in Palestine. So there was a Jewish community and a Palestinian community divided by the fence. And it was a diary project that went over a period of months. And it built on some of the same kind of design principles. So really, just to sort of sum up that part of the presentation, design is content. The way you design your interface, the way you design your user experience is a whole new set of skills that we have to develop in terms of thinking about montage. We sort of understand montage. We understand putting one sequence after another. We understand putting sound next to sequences, and we understand how to spend months in an edit suite crafting something beautiful as linear documentary makers. This takes that and actually expands it into different, more dimensions. But still, the principle of montage and user experience and flow, and some of the aesthetic principles that we understand from making films have to be reapplied and relearned in this new context. I'd also recommend that you look at something, if you're interested in doing this work yourself, there's a system called the Korsakoff system, which has been developed by a German guy called Florian Thalhofer. And there's links to that on the expanded documentary post that I made. And the Korsakoff system is a really not very difficult way of doing this. It's a database system that allows you to load your clips in, and you can screen a short clip, and then you'll be given, for instance, a menu of 3 other clips that you might want to show that you might want to see after the one that you've just seen. And those are determined by the content of the one that you've just seen. So you can program in rule sets into Korsakoff that determine the navigation. So instead of having this infinite database, actually, it's about creating rules for navigation. And that's one of the big principles of what's going to come out of my presentation today, I hope, is that in this infinite polyvocal fragmentary world of online actuality fragments, what's really important is creating rule sets that you and your users understand as a way of gaining access to the material. So the next thing I want to talk about is the politics and the poetics of collaboration. If we look at online documentary today, we can find examples of collaborative activity within pre-production and post-production, and already some of you are familiar with the ways in which producers are crowdsourcing content to get into a documentary, a program like the BBC's ran a series last year called Virtual Revolution, and all of the research was conducted publicly online, so they were crowdsourcing ideas and content and ideas and so on, and the program was shaped in consultation with the user community. Or there's a very famous film that the National Film Board of Canada made in 2009 called RIP, a Remix Manifesto, which was directed by Brett Gaylor, which again is a whole film about crowdsourcing and how you crowdsource culture actually as a whole. So there's a kind of movement that comes actually out of YouTube. Okay, so this is interesting in itself actually. Here we go. So this is one of the breakthrough collaborative collaborative pieces of YouTube work from 2006. Remember, YouTube only starts in 2005. I know it's hard to realize it's only 2005 since we've had YouTube. The year after, this guy, Mad V was a musician who used to come on YouTube and do tricks. And he got this idea about making, what would happen if I asked people to help me make a video? And so he put this message out with a call to action about how people would want, what kind of inspiring messages his audience would like to offer the world. And he was astonished. He got like thousands of responses, and he put this clip together. And this is 2006, and this is the first moment that the world begins to go, oh, there's a new form of collaboration available in filmmaking here. This is one of those moments which is a breakthrough from an underground grassroots culture to something which is more mainstream. There's another piece which I recommend, which there's a link to, which is a guy called Kutiman, who is an Israeli musician. And Kutiman has a piece called Through You, which is based on musical collaborations. And that's a really beautiful piece of work where musicians from all over the world collaborate in producing a piece of funk music. And I'd really recommend that. It's good fun. So at the meeting of participatory culture and documentary, we are thus seeing the emergence of new arrangements within the production process and innovation in documentary form. Projects offer participants varying degrees and modes of editorial influence and control. Where participation is part of the process, we can see the networking of aspects of linear production, as in the open research processes described above, and forms of distributed authorship, whereby participants produce modules within a non-linear project. These emerging practices can all be seen as forms of co-creation in which documentary storytelling is shaped not by an auteur or by a collective, but within a network of relationships. So the documentary director becomes not a director, but actually a curator, and almost like an energy conductor. More recently, in 2010, the collab has made a decisive move from cultural margins to mainstream with work like Life in a Day, made by Kevin MacDonald under the auspices of Ridley and Tony Scott. How many of you seen Life in a Day? So a small smattering, okay. So through a multi-version promo available in 20 languages, they invited YouTubers around the world to record their day on July the 24th, 2010, and called it A Portrait of 24 Hours on Earth. And then MacDonald cut the selected contributions into a feature documentary, which premiered at Sundance earlier this year. Yeah, what I meant to say about how interesting it was that there was the previous clip, you know, there's this little collaborative thing that happens and takes off, and suddenly it's got a McDonald's ad slapped on it 2 years later, because Mad V is now making money from being a collaborative video person online. He's got his own channel and it's funded through advertising. That's another story about the political economy of this world. Life in a Day is the latest in a spate of projects aspiring to capture life on Earth, which have been shaped by the affordance of digital video and participation. They also include Jan Bertrand's 6 Billion Others, for which he and his team travelled the world shooting over 5,000 interviews with gallery visitors invited to add their contributions. In what is fast becoming a cliche of online documentary, the web interface of 6 Billion Others presents its myriad of micro-portraits as a mosaic, a screen full of faces. Like some of the work that we touched on earlier, the Miami Havana, I think, Life in a Day and 6 Billion Others have a thoroughgoing humanism at their heart. They recruit the potential viewer to understand him or herself as a common part of a common humanity, together as one, united as one. We're all in this together, one worldism. However, this project should really remind anybody who has a familiarity with the history of documentary of an earlier debate about photography, occasioned by the Great Family of Man exhibition, which was formally opened in Paris in 1955. At that point, photography was being celebrated as the medium that could capture humanity and reveal universality. Now it is new media technologies that are being cast in this role. But the critique of the humanistic project articulated by Roland Barthes in his 1957 book Mythologies at the time of the Paris exhibition, it seems to me to be very pertinent to these contemporary projects. So this is what I meant in my abstract about going back to some real old stuff. Because looking at these projects like 6 Billion Others and Life in a Day and these massive global collaborations, I was reminded of this quotation, and it's a little bit difficult, so I'm going to spend a moment taking us through it. The myth of the human condition rests on a very old mystification which always consists in placing nature at the bottom of history. Any classic humanism postulates that in scratching the history of men a little, the relativity of their institutions or the superficial diversity of their skins, I'm missing out the next bit, one very quickly reaches the solid rock of a universal human nature. Progressive humanism, on the contrary, must always remember to reverse the terms of this very old imposture, constantly to scan nature, its laws and its limits in order to rediscover history there, and at last to establish nature itself as historical. So what he means by this is to discover history there, to actually assume that nature is not ahistorical. We are not actually all exactly the same, although he doesn't dismiss humanism, he calls for a progressive humanism, which recognises difference, it recognises power, it recognises discursive formations, it recognises class, ethnicity, gender and so on. It doesn't assume that we're all the same and finish up with these bland assertions that the world is wonderful because like when you watch Life in a Day, basically your experience is, well, yeah, aren't human beings weird and wonderful? Well, okay, yeah, that's fine, but tell us something else. Take me somewhere else. Tell me something about the way that the world might change or the way that the world might be improved. Don't just show me it. That's dull. So that's what I think is going on here in this Barth quote. And when he says in the middle, why not ask the parents of Emmett Till, the young Negro assassinated by the whites, he's referring, what they think about the idea of the great family of man, he's referring to a young lad who was assassinated in the mid-50s by white supremacists in the deep south of America in a particularly brutal way. It's not one world. There is power, there is oppression, and actually it's important that progressive humanists remember that. Okay, so what does that mean for us as filmmakers?